let's talk about leading lines. You can have leading lines that are explicit or implicit in your images. Leading lines are lines that can be physical in your image or can be kind of like imaginary. Okay, so again, implicit. They will lead your eye to the element of payoff or through the entire image the way the artist wants you to sort of explore the image, right? So in this case, for example, it's the Tokyo Tower, and you got this line leading you here, and then you bounce and you go here to the payoff. Massive triangle, you know, very interesting angle, and you got these two lines leading you into the image. This is a Fuji Tower I shot in Odaiba in Tokyo, and you got this offset to the left, leading line to the offset to the right, this sphere on the top of this Fuji building. That's a massive leading line, emphasized, framed by the really thick one, and it leads you in. You can't go anywhere else. You have to go in. This is just ignoring all these signs. You just are pulled like by an elephant inside of this image. It's so powerful, right? And that's the whole point. You got this is a good example too. From a corner around, spiraling here gently towards this payoff. And you know, this entire left side, all the leading lines, they become kind of like a negative space. These are explicit lines because you can see them physically in your image. That's a good example too. You got these lights, you're gonna be sliding along these lights and the carpet going inside, but also the distortion, because it was shot with a very wide angle, the distortion itself gonna create kind of like, you know, implicit lines leading you inside of the image, sort of like bending you inside of it. I don't know if you can see that, but kind of subconsciously you want to sort of get sucked into this image, into the middle, right? So that's how it works. Now, a very good example of implicit lines would be in Chinese or Japanese calligraphy, and I want to show you an example from one of the classics, very famous classics by Huaisu, from 8th century, and Chinese calligrapher, and he was brilliant. He was a master of cursive style. I've been studying this script for like, you know, a few years. It was amazing. But I want to show you how it works in calligraphy, because it's actually, you can explain it very well. So if I'm going to draw over here the strokes of the brush, the way the brush will be flowing while writing this character, you'll understand what I mean. So if you start here, you know, brush lands here, that's the first stroke, okay? In Japanese, we call it kihitsu, which means the first contact, awakening of the brush, right? The first contact with the surface. You drop the brush here, you go here, you lift off, right? And then you create kind of like a motion in the air with your brush, and you land. You go down here, lift off again, and you land here, and you go all the way here down, lift off, and then you land here, and you keep writing all the way down. And then the moment when you go here, you lift off and you go this way, okay? You go this way, boom, here, and then you follow here and you finish, right? So these lines, all of these lines here, these are implicit leading lines. They're gonna be leading your eye to the next stroke, and they emphasize the flow of artwork, okay? That's why calligraphy is so powerful, because there's a very, very powerful flow in it and structure. So if you look into, for example, flow between the characters, it exists as well. There's an implicit line here, there's an implicit line here, right? There's an implicit line here because you're gonna go this way, and boom, and you're gonna jump in here. Then, you know, you're gonna go here into there, and you're gonna rotate and jump, and boom, and you keep writing here, and you jump. And you got these implicit lines all over the place, okay? So for instance, from this, you know, end of this brush strokes, your brush is gonna follow sort of like a circular motion here, boom, and land. And, you know, from here, you're gonna lift off, boom, and land here, right? So that's how it works. And these implicit lines you can apply in any artwork, and they're very powerful because they're very subtle. But they will help you to emphasize the flow. So if you can create this, for example, with colors, or even shapes that are not precisely lines, but they kind of, you know, imply that you want to go from importance point 1 to importance point 2, and you can clearly map this path, like in, you know, like have these drawings when you have a blank page and you have just numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. to connect the dots to create the image. That's how it works, okay? You connect the dots between, you know, points of interest, and that's how you've been led through the entire image, you know, by this implicit or explicit leading lines. So this is how you can use the leading lines, what they are, and, you know, how you can apply them in your artwork to make your work way more impactful and sort of directed. You're gonna be Imagine that you're a director, you know, of an orchestra, and you just telling them what's the tempo, what's the rhythm, what's the flow, right? That's what you're doing with the leading lines in your image. It's a very, very powerful technique.